to the class that Jason and I did together. Okay, not a lot. There's a little bit of repetition, but not a lot of repetition, so I just wanted to say that up front. So I am Amy Jo Oswald. I'm the Director of Children's Ministries, and I'm really glad that you're here this morning. I hope you got a handout, a set of handouts in the back. If you did not, you can grab one now, or you can get one on your way out. Just has some resources in here for you, and some of that we're going to touch on, some of it you can just read at your leisure. So this is Parenting Through the Phases, and we started doing these before the pandemic hit. And we did 4th and 5th grade, we did infants, we did kindergarten and 1st grade, and this is 2nd and 3rd, and then we're going to do one for toddlers next month. So that'll take us through all the different stages. But before we get started, I'm going to show this quick video. And I hope I do this right. I am not tech savvy at all. No, you don't have to be right there. Every phase is important, and you only have 52 weeks to be in a certain phase with your children and to make the most of it, because every phase counts. And I can watch it now without getting choked up, but every time I used to watch it, I have a 24-year-old daughter, and it used to just choke me up. But so every phase is important, and every time that you spend with your child is important, so make all those memories count. So I'm going to introduce our panelists today, starting at the very end with Callie Worsing. She is a pediatrician at Navant Health Armory of Pediatrics 51. She and her husband Lance moved back to Charlotte in 2011, and they have 2 boys, Lexton and Beckett, ages 9 and 7. Then we have Jenna Peed, who has been an educator for 10 years. She taught 5 years in CMS before starting a family of her own. And after staying home for 7 years, she went back to teach math at the Oaks Christian School for a year. This is her 4th year at Charlotte Christian School, where she currently serves as a lower school STEM coordinator. She She and her husband, Brian, that's sitting beside her, have 2 biological children who are 10 and 8. They also have 3 bonus foster children, ages 8, 6, and 1. I think they are crazy. I think they are tremendously generous and brave, and a blessing to do that for those children. Jenna enjoys being outdoors and active as much as possible. Brian is the head of liquidity data testing within corporate treasury at Bank of America, where he has had multiple roles in his 15 years with them. I would love to know what that means. I have no idea what it does. In addition to the children he and Jenna have, he loves being outdoors, hiking and skiing and riding bikes. He has an affinity for both the mountains and the beach. He loves to coach his son's baseball team, or being that parent that cheers too loudly from the sidelines. He is also an avid runner, getting miles in most mornings, and recently ran the Boston Marathon in April. You may also recognize him drumming for Jesus on Sunday mornings at Church in the Round in Jubilee Hall. And then Laura Murdoch and her husband Brian have been members at Myers Park for over 22 years. They have 3 boys, Colin 15, James 12, and Adam 9. Laura loves being a boy mom and considers herself fluent in all things Minecraft, Harry Potter, and Marvel. Outside of her family, she is a dedicated volunteer and currently serves as co-president of the PTO at Sedgefield Middle, is on the board of the Duke Mansion Preservation Society and Promenade Cotillion, and helps with children and youth ministries, disciple in the Samaritan Sunday School class. When not driving carpool or trying to cross things off her to-do list, Laura loves to read, garden, travel, and just hang out with her men. So let's thank them for being here today. Okay, so let's get to it. 2nd and 3rd graders. This is the phase when fairness matters the most, differences get noticed, and your enthusiastic child thinks anything and everything sounds like fun. Doesn't matter what you suggest, it's going to sound like fun. And they think everything sounds like fun, and they're going to try to talk you into doing anything and everything. So this is the phase of capable and dependent. And it's tempting for us to disengage from them at that age because they do start becoming more independent. But you don't want to disengage too much, or you're going to miss out on all these fun adventures that they want to go on. Being a 2nd and 3rd grader, like I said, is a season of adventure for you and your child. They do still have that innocent enthusiasm to embrace new experiences. They do have a naturally optimistic outlook. This may be the time that they start to have a best friend. Some of that does happen earlier. I do see preschoolers that say they have a best friend. 3rd grade is that year of fractions, multiplication tables, and grammar rules. 3rd grade may be the year that your child begins to read for pleasure. Mine never did. But school gets a little bit harder in 3rd grade. That's when a lot of the testing starts to happen. And I don't know about you, but that was not fun for me to do homework with my child starting in 3rd grade. So 3rd graders and 2nd graders, basically they're asking the question, do I have what it takes? Do I have what it takes to make the team? Do I have what it takes to get the grade? Do I have what it takes to measure up to their own standards, to your standards? They want to know, do I measure up? They want to know, do I fit in? They start wondering if they fit in at this age as well. So changes are noticeable for 2nd and 3rd grade, and we're going to talk a little bit about physical changes, mental changes, social and emotional. And I would love to start with Callie and ask her if she can think of any as a pediatrician, 2nd and 3rd graders, any physical changes or any that stand out.
Yeah, so most kids in 2nd and 3rd grade, they grow like 2.5 inches a year. It's not like a major growth period. I kind of call it, parents are always like, ooh, is their weight gain okay? Is their grade okay? I say it's kind of those years of this and this and this and this and this and this. So we're going to even if they grow up, it's nothing. So that's kind of normal. Also like 4 to 7 pounds a year is on average. They get kind of more muscle. They have more endurance, like their fine motor skills are better, so they tie their shoes and their pen 15, 20 minutes and you know they'll probably be okay. A lot of kids, sometimes they start being really independent, like wanting to go to sleepaway camp and things like that. Emotionally, also, friendships are super important. Sometimes friendships can be kind of that hot and cold, so they like them, they don't, they like them, they don't, they recover quickly. They also, the girls hang out with the girls, the boys hang out with the boys, but I know I laugh in my house all the time about, your girlfriend or your boyfriend, those kind of talks too. They're super silly, they love jokes. Potty talk is very common. You hear that all your mom, they talk shit, that's a very common thing in my house. What else? Empathy. That's another thing with friendships. So they start to really understand empathy, which is really kind of cool to see. They also form better friendships or relationships with adults. So coaches, teachers are super, they love their teachers at this age, which is a lot of fun too. What else? Self-regulation, they're better at that, so you start to see a little bit more of that control of emotions and stuff, which is a good thing. More aware, so I find you have to be a little more careful about what's on TV, what's on the news, what they hear. Their friends start talking a lot about current events or things, so these are those ages where a lot of times, especially before bed, asking them what they've heard or what they're worrying about. Sometimes that brings on anxiety too. So, important to have those conversations and talk through, give them, your opinion about it so they're not learning about everything from their friends. And the other thing too, this is kind of the age too where I really talk about stranger danger, consent about your body, those kinds of things, because they are kind of venturing out, going to summer camps, spending more time at friends' houses or other places, not always at your house. So kind of an important thing I always tell parents to make sure you've had that discussion about, what we're with mine.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Can y'all think of anything as parents who've had your children go through this stage that you particularly noticed or that stood out for you that you can remember?
I like the empathy point. I mean, we have 3 girls that are between 6 and 8, right? And so there's a lot of fun playing with those ages, but also some cattiness and 2 people are playing and one's out and all that sort of stuff. And so the empathy point I thought was good because that's been a useful tool to say, let's pause. How would you feel if you were the one that was left out and they were playing and they said that you couldn't join them, join on your or and you can tell that they start to get it. And it's been kind of a nice tool to kind of break things down a little bit and say, all right, we got to pause. We can't just think of ourselves and what we want to do and what's next and all this sort of stuff. But our actions, our words, they have an impact on the people that are around us. And so I thought it was an interesting one when he said, hey, this is kind of a developing emotion or skill set and stuff. So I think it's been a powerful tool though in the discipline side of things or just better understanding those results.
I think also the thing that jumped out at me when you were talking with us, this is probably the first page I noticed with all of our children that it really resonated with me that growth is not just linear. When they're small, they're all about achieving the next milestone. They're crawling, they're walking, they're plateauing, whatever. It seems like it's kind of non-directional. When you get to this age, it starts to feel a bit more cyclical, right? So you might have something where you have days or weeks or even months where you feel like your kids are kind of reaching a new level of maturity. And then you might have a couple months where they kind of take a step backwards. You're like, wait a second, I thought we already figured this out. We're mastering this. And so I think you have to kind of be ready to have a little bit more ambiguity, that's the word I'm looking for, but a little more ambiguity around where exactly they are in their maturation process. Sometimes you see that with depending where they are with school that year, maybe with a friend group, and they kind of progress a little bit. Other times you can make a huge leap forward and they'll never get back. So I would just say be prepared for that as you get to this age group.
Thank you. As y'all can see, the internet is not cooperating with me, and I'm so glad that I spent so much time on this PowerPoint presentation that you may or may not get to see, and I have practiced it and practiced it and practiced it. So, okay, we're gonna move on. 6 things that your child needs. Love, to give them a sense of worth. Stories, and I always send y'all this. Stories, to give them a bigger perspective. Work, to give them significance. Fun, to give them connection. Community, to give them belonging. And words, to give them direction. So every child needs love, which gives them their sense of worth and gives them their self-confidence and gives them their self-esteem. So one of the things I wanted to talk about was, how many of you are familiar with Gary Chapman's book, The 5 Love Languages? Are any of y'all familiar with that? Okay, great. Well, he also wrote one for children and he wrote one for teenagers. So the best thing to do as a parent is to try to figure out what your child's love language is. And there is quality time, there's gifts, there's physical touch, there's words of affirmation, and there's acts of service. I think I said all 5 of those. So it's easy for us to want to give love the way we want to receive love, but you have to figure out what your child's love language is. And if it's gifts, go to the Dollar Tree, I'm telling you right now, because until they get older and start wanting more expensive things, because that's when it gets tricky. But you have to try to love them the way they want to be loved. The best thing to do to love your children is to just really engage in what their interests are, to figure out what they love to do and what they like, and to be involved in that. If they want to play something, I mean, I've told y'all this story before. My daughter used to want to play Operation. That is, I cannot stand that game. I thought if I have to hear that one more time, I was going to lose my mind. So I just had to take the batteries out until they were broken, the game was broken, and we would still play it. But I could not stand that noise. So I know I was a bad parent. But I would just try to find out what she liked to do, what her interests were, and that was my way to engage with her. It's not always what I wanted to do, but it was what she wanted to do. So pay attention to your child's interests and pay attention to what they like to do. Communicate to them that their ideas have value. They're going to come up with some crazy ideas and some things that are off the wall, and somehow you've got to communicate that even though you may not do those crazy ideas, that's a cool idea. We cannot always do those things, but that's a really cool idea. And show that curiosity about their activities and that their efforts are significant. That's one thing that we always want to do, is to show them that they tried their best, they tried their hardest. Demonstrate that they're worth loving all the time and help them push through their setbacks. So one of the things I would ask is, can y'all think of activities or certain things that y'all did with your kids that they just absolutely love? You don't think of anything in particular? Like, I know for your family, y'all are big outside people. So y'all probably did a lot of things outside as a family.
We do. I mean, I think for us, our kids, the girls especially, are in major, like, imaginary play. So I think them doing that and also seeing that I can engage in that as an adult has been huge for them, just to see that we have a fun, silly side. But we do spend a lot of time outside, and obviously our 2 foster kids are not used to the hiking and all of that kind of stuff, but it's been good to teach, like, this is hard, we're going to do it, and it's going to feel good when we accomplish it, and that kind of thing. But yeah, we spend a lot of time outside.
Shameless plug for next year's Tacoma trip. Last weekend we were at Camp Tacoma, right? Methodist camp up in Hendersonville. The church puts it on. You might see it in the bulletin. Like, you're not going to sleep great, the food's okay, but it's a ton of fun, right? And like, I looked at my watch at the end of Saturday, and it's 9 o'clock at night, and it had like 18,000 steps from walking up to the climbing wall, or the zip line, or the rope swing, or swimming, and like, it's a ton of fun, and there's not really any devices, and it's just...
It's perfect for this age group because they can have independence, which is what they're really thriving for, but it still is very much still contained and safe, and they love to fish and can do the paddle boats by themselves and canoeing by themselves. And it is fun for this age group especially.
It's a contained environment. You feel safe. give them a little bit of freedom.
My 7-year-old went to go over a week this summer, and my almost 10-year-old has gone two summers now. And they came home, and the second they came home, said, we're going back next summer. So they're already set up for next summer. So it's so fun, especially for second and third graders. It's just, I've been here as a kid. I'm 40. I was 7 years old, 8 years old, my mom was a camp nurse, and my brother was a camp counselor there. So it's been around forever. It's a wonderful place. So it's something they consider their game for a first place to do something.
I want to piggyback what you said about cleaning the operation. That really did resonate with me. That's how I become fluent in Marvel, which I hadn't even heard of before I had 3 boys. You find things that they're interested in, you figure out a way to plug them, and you can talk with them on their level. But what I have found, kind of like you taking the batteries out of the operation day, is to be honest about the things that you like to do and what you don't like to do. And also, the timer on your cell phone is your best friend. So when you're playing Monopoly, go ahead and set the timer and say, I'm going to play for an hour. The hour, that's when we say the game is over. So, I think it's 100% fun to put parameters around how you interact with your kids. That way it's kind of a win-win for everybody.
That's true, Monopoly, you can play that for hours too. Yeah. See, I repressed that, so I forgot about that one. It's another.
Can I say something on that? I do think that another thing that we like and our kids love is playing games. Like, we look very much forward to the weekends when we can do families, and I think there's so much that can be taught in that. Because we don't actually, we win. We play like to win.
Yeah.
So we definitely we work on that. If you're gonna lose and it's gonna be okay, we'll play again. And we're probably still gonna beat you, but they actually got really good. But there's so many skills that can come from that. Because typically they pal, and you have watched that, grow as they grow. But I think that's something.
And don't be afraid to say, if they start, sulking or whatever, they're going to be like, all right, dude, I'm not going to play with you.
Yeah,
I'm not going to play with you. They need to hear those lessons too. But that reminds me of something else I wanted to mention. So glad you said that. The other thing that we do a lot in our house, I'm a big jigsaw puzzle person. It's kind of like how I like to chill out between the craziness of running my kids' carpools all afternoon and getting certain bits in or whatever. And so I always have a puzzle set up on our screen porch, and the kids will come out and they'll sit down and they'll talk to me. And this is something that our pediatrician years ago told us, that especially with boys, they don't like making eye contact when they talk to you. So if you're doing something and not looking at them, they'll talk to you a lot more freely than they would if you're sitting down with them and trying to engage in a conversation. The car is constantly in your place to do this. If they're in the back seat and they can't see what you're doing, so just turn the radio off and just let them talk or whatever. But the puzzle thing in addition to games has been really helpful for us to kind of have a landing place for us to be together as a family and also have some really great conversations.
Yeah, so 3 quick games that I think they end in 5 to 10 minutes, but left, right, center, Farkle, the dice game, and spoons.
Oh, that's nice.
Are all small, easy to get out. You can do them. You can play 1 round. You can play 15 rounds. But those are my go-tos if we need.
Well, this is Farkle. It's a great one. My 7-year-old loves it. It's a math game too.
It's you roll 5 dice and then different points for 1s and 5s, and then they have to count up and they're looking for
Hundreds and fifties, so it's very easy math, especially at this stage that we're looking at. Ours look Tinsy as well, and I have that in my classroom, so that's another good one.
Are you spelling that like sparkle?
Farkle.
Okay.
Article.
Yeah. Cool. I love what you said about the jigsaw puzzle, because that's a great idea, especially for boys, because the car is the number one to initiate some conversation, for sure. But I love
That's
it.
what you said. Precious time for multiple purposes.
I know, I love that. Exactly. So the next one is stories, and every child needs stories over time to give them a bigger perspective. And I've put in the packet for you, there's some book suggestions for 2nd graders and 3rd grader book suggestions. Hey, maybe I can get this connected. No, I'm gonna keep trying. There's also a parenting resource book list in there of some parenting books that are good suggestions. One thing that kids love is they love to hear their story over and over and over again. Tell me about the day I was born. They want to hear that over and over again. They want to hear your story. Tell me how y'all met. Tell me the day y'all got married. They want to hear all those stories. They love to hear funny stories about things that you did when you were a child. And they just love to hear, they want to hear funny things that y'all did. Have grandparents tell stories. Those are priceless. If any of you have any of those books that you can get your grandparents to write down things that they did as a child, or there are books that they can write their story down for your children, those are really, really special. If you have adopted a child, one thing that we did, we adopted our daughter, was we not only celebrated her birthday, but we celebrated what we call Gotcha Day. So it was the day that we went and got her. So she had 2 celebrations every year. We still celebrate Gotcha Day. Every child needs work over time to give them significance, and what that means is from the time they're born, our job is to train them up to be adults and to leave the nest and to go on their own. So even a 2 and 3-year-old can put their toys in the basket. So 2nd and 3rd graders can empty the dishwasher. Now, some of these things you're not going to want them to do because you're not going to be happy with the way they do it, but they can do these things. They can put away dishes, shocker, they can sort, wash, fold, and throw away their laundry. They can plant and water flowers. They can make their bed. They can clean their room. There's things that they can do. And there's a handout of all the different responsibilities of things that kids can do from the time in preschool up through high school. So I hope that you'll take advantage of that. Every child needs community over time to give them belonging. Not only their friends, but what I love about church is church community is there are children that they're not all going to the same school. And that's one thing that I think is cool about church, is they're going to meet friends at church that are not just their neighborhood children, they're not just their school friends, they're going to meet children from all different neighborhoods and schools. The next is adults that might influence your 2nd and 3rd grader. You've got teachers, coaches, neighbors, you've got church leaders, grandparents, aunts and uncles. And think about your friends. Who are the people that are around your children the most? And I call it to think about your circle of 5. Think about the 5 adults that are around your children the most. And do they share the same values that you share? Do you want them to be around your children the most? Would they give them the same advice that you would give your children? It'll sort of check you on who your friends are and who you hang around with the most. And who would you want your child to go to when they get older if they needed advice and they were nervous to come to you? We always hope our children will come to us first. But if for some reason they were nervous or scared to come to you, is there an adult in their life that they would feel comfortable going to? So think about that. Every child needs words to give them direction, and we want to say things and phrases that just always stick in their head and build them up. Obviously, you want to tell your children that you love them. You want to tell them, good morning. You want to tell them good night. I think you should kiss your children good night every night. But you want to say things like work hard, and you want to say keep trying. You want to notice things about your children and tell them that you've noticed, like, I've noticed that you've been doing so-and-so, or I've noticed that you've been trying, or I'm really proud of you when, and I enjoy spending time with you. Those are phrases that you can say. And one of the biggest things you can say as a parent is to say you're sorry when you've done something. Children need to know that parents make mistakes too, and that you're sorry and ask their forgiveness. That's a big one.
Can I tag on that?
Yeah. Tag on any of these.
That's a huge thing about the time saying when you're sorry, but also one thing that I noticed recently with all 3 of my kids is being really open and honest about my emotions, like if something is stressing me out, or like I did something that I wish I had handled differently, and like verbalizing what that was and how it made me feel and what I'm going to do about it next, because I think that's something we kind of overlook a lot of times. Like I think we kind of innately know we should say we're sorry we did something wrong, but they need to know that we as adults, we get worried, we get scared, we don't have the answer, we make mistakes. And so by saying that and discussing kind of like how to handle it, it arms them for when they come to a similar situation for their own.
Right. I think everybody's afraid of the unknown, and I think when children don't know what's going on, that does make them anxious. So I think being honest with them is always the best thing. The rhythm of your week shapes the values in your home. What I mean by that is routine is perfect for children. They need routine, they need consistency. And it's hard as working parents and children on the go to have that traditional meal at home every night. Like, we're not June Cleaver, we're not Leave It to Beaver, we're not those families that have dinner on the table every night. But when you can do something as a family and you can do things, tradition's important. So try to have routines and traditions that just provide safety for them and stability and comfort. Like Laura was saying, one of the best times is drive time. Drive time is, they sort of see you as a friend sometimes, not just a parent, and they'll tell you things in the car, and that's a time that you can have some informal conversation with them. They don't really always feel like you're going to lecture them, and they'll tell you things in the car. They'll also tell you things about their friends in the car. Sometimes as they get older, things that you're like, do you know? But the car is great. Morning time is great. Morning time is a great time for you to kind of pump them up for the day and tell them, ask them what they're looking forward to that day, pump them up, tell them they're going to have a great day, ask them what they're looking forward to. Mornings are hard for children sometimes. You'll notice, like Callie said, they might act like they have an upset tummy, or they all of a sudden have a headache or a tummy ache, and it's usually because they're anxious about something going on at school. But morning is a good time for you to sort of be a coach and instill some purpose and give them encouraging words. And then mealtime is a great time for y'all to have a conversation and be real intentional and ask them what the best part of their day was. A lot of families do what they call, ups and downs. What was the best part of your day, and what was the lowest part of your day, and do that for them as well. Tell them what your favorite part of the day was, and maybe what the low part of your day was. And then bedtime is another time that you can have significant conversations with your children. Read a prayer, read a book, ask them what they're excited about for the next day. So morning time, drive time, meal time, and bedtime are the times that you can try to make routine. The next thing we're going to talk about is your child's faith. And this is when you trust God's character and you experience God's family. And you can really help your child grow in their wisdom and their faith and their friendship. Practically speaking, every week you have an opportunity to connect with the faith community, come to church. You have an opportunity to pray together with your children every day, read Bible stories, and answer faith questions. I would love to know from the panel if there are things that you feel like you've either done or you're currently doing that are growing their faith. Can you think of anything in particular?
The faith one is, the key is to surround them with it all the time, I feel like. And that goes to myself as well, right? Like in those periods where we're coming to church regularly, going to Sunday school, involved in Bible study or a men's group, or we led a small group of high schoolers for 4 years. Like, that intentionality and being surrounded with it all week helped with my own faith of just keeping things running along and keeping God constantly on my mind and in my heart. And I think we, as parents, have to do the same thing with our kids. So it's playing worship music on Alexa in the morning while they're eating breakfast. It's having that on in the car to kind of stir conversations, whether it's the music itself or the in-between songs, and they're talking on the radio, like traveling conversation and other things. Reading Bible stories, at the dinner table, before you eat, or prayers at night, like all those things, coming to Sunday school regularly, coming to church regularly, but just having it surrounded so that's a part of day in and day out, I think is so key, whether that's for ourselves or for the kids, has been helpful.
Anybody else think of anything? As you know, in third grade, the children receive their gift Bibles from the church. And we offer the whole third grade Sunday school year, they're learning how to use their Bibles. That's their curriculum. And we encourage them to bring them every week. And next month, we're going to give them a little Bible calendar and challenge them to read some verses every day. I don't know if we're going to reward them at the end of the month or not. I haven't decided. I have mixed feelings about rewarding them. But we're going to challenge them to read and memorize some verses. But there are things that you can say with your children to kind of drive home the importance of prayer and faith development. You know, ask your child, can I pray with you about that? And some parents are not comfortable doing that because they're not comfortable praying themselves. But you could say, can I pray for you about that if you are more comfortable praying by yourself? Or you could say, can I pray with you about that? You could say sometimes to your children, you know, we can trust God with that, so that you can let them know that to have faith and to trust God with that. Another thing you can do is to start asking them, what is the wisest choice? If they're trying to make a choice about something, ask them what the wisest choice is, because the older they get, they're going to have more and more choices to make, and you want to go ahead and plant that phrase in their mind, what is the wisest choice to make? If they make man, I'm telling you, if I'd had that phrase growing up, my life would have been so different if I'd had that little phrase in my head. What is the wise choice? I would have made so many different choices. And what Brian was saying earlier, you know, if you ask them, how would you want to be treated? How would that make you feel? That's huge for them. So instilling all these lifelong messages early. Yes?
Another thing that I think is that we try to be intentional about is instilling like God's character in certain situations. So like even with our discipline, like we go back to a sticker chart at our house, which is what we have 5 kids that are all the time. I was like, we're gonna have to do something about this. But I can reward and take away. So just any way that like any opportunity that we get to kind of echo the heart of Christ in our day-to-day, instead of it being like an intentional, devotion in the morning or something like that. We were like, well, do you think Jesus would treat his friends like that? Or I'm going to give you a grace word. That's my favorite word to use. I'm going to give you a grace word. Like, what is that? What is grace? Like, I'm going to forgive you for this action. So like little things like that. Our kids also go to Christian school, so I feel like they are much stronger in their faith and Bible knowledge than we are. Like, did you know this story? I'm like, no, I didn't. Tell me more. But I think it's not just being intentional about, the church stuff, coming to church, praying, that's all super important, but like the character of God and how we build that into our kids. And using words like redemption and, I'm going to give you a star, but I'm also going to take a star away, but you can earn it back. How do you think you can earn it back?
Right.
And the other thing that is really important in our house with our foster children is giving them a sense of, we have one that is, she's very fussy, but giving her, affirmation and having an opinion about stuff and saying, well, how do you think we should handle this? Like, I see that y'all are having a disagreement. Like, what do you think we should do? And sometimes even if I don't agree with it, I'm like, all right, that's what we're going to do. That's what she said. Let's do that. Let's see how that works. So kind of giving them an opportunity to have a voice and all that. I think that works too for us as far as it ties in our faith, but it also is character building.
I think that's great.
Which is really important.
Another thing for character building is to teach them the fruits of the Spirit, too. To teach them about joy and patience and self-control and gentleness. That definitely builds their character as well.
And then honestly, them seeing us, right, worship, in the Word, pray, like that's key, us being role models and all that, and saying, okay, this is how it actually looks.
Even if it's uncomfortable, like I think that's important. I grew up in a house where our parents prayed separately, and it's just it was such a foreign thing for us. So like, we had like, now do you need that this week? Our little said prayer, and I do think it's so important for them to hear us like pray. It doesn't have to be formal or perfect. I think that's like what adds value to it. Right?
Definitely. So this is our Q&A time for y'all to ask any of our panelists or me any questions that y'all have about this second and third grade phase. Yes, Heather?
Lots.
Okay. Wow.
So one question that popped up in your intro was you talked about like the big ideas. And I feel like I'm constantly saying no or you can.
What you got, Doctor?
I had a couple ideas, a couple thoughts earlier. One is like routine's great, but I also think like at this age, they love like those surprises. So that like secret trip to the mountains or to go apple picking or, something where you don't tell them where you're going, like this age loves that. Same kind of thing, pick them up from school, surprise them with like Ben and Jerry. Like those little things they thrive off of. So sometimes doing those kinds of things can kind of help with the, I want to go here, I want to go here, I want to go here. The other thing that my husband and I keep saying we're going to do is like a yes day. So there's a lot of that. You hear that whole day where they get you to, you give them a day. It's terrifying. You never say that. Yes.
Do they have to go to the car wash?
Yeah. Right. I don't know.
Keep the windows up?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember just nobody gets hurt or as long as like nothing's destroyed in the process. But I'm hearing a lot of these yes days, and I'm saying we're gonna do this, but then I'm like, oh my goodness, I don't know. So sometimes, they need to have help, I don't know.
Yeah, I just wanted to talk about the yesterday, if you all seen the movie and have kids to beg for it.
Yeah.
And since you said you've been hearing a lot of it, I wanted to know the reality of what kind of parameters of people who tried it established and worked. Because if you watch that movie, there's absolutely no way, and yes, it's gonna happen, I'm just being frank, in a way it happened in the movie, but in reality, what does that look like when you talk to people who said they've done it?
Yeah, I think you have to set, you have to set parameters, whether that's like dollar, like what that's gonna look like. I guess maybe have your kids give their ideas and then you say, well, can we pick 3 of these ideas and sort of, guide them like we always do, like what's our day gonna look like? And yes, still make them feel like it's a yes day, but honestly nothing that's gonna destroy something or hurt somebody or just,
Being an math person, I think the budget would be.
The budget,
Understand,
right?
hey, like this is the budget.
Like, you can spend this.
And let's be creative.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think to your earlier point too, like, it's easy to get on the like, oh, carowinds, or let's go to the movies, and like all these things. It's like, sometimes you find they have just as much fun, like, when you go to Freedom Park and you all play together. Like, it's not like you go play, it's like, no, I'm gonna go run the Panthers obstacle course with you. And like, they just like that involvement and stuff, or hiking or whatever it is. Like, not everything has to be,
Wow.
Yeah.
let's go spend $100 to take kids to the movies.
I would say to my daughter, things like that, I would say, that's for a special occasion. And we would have a special occasion jar. And she would put her ideas in the special occasion jar. And then if we had extra money and we were gonna do something like that, I would let her choose something out of the special occasion jar. And then we would put it on the calendar. And it might be, that we needed to plan it around certain dates or certain times of income or whatever. But that's my way of getting her to quit begging me for it every single day for 3 weeks. I would say, that's a great idea, let's put it in a special occasion jar. And then it'll be for a special occasion. Because it's not something that we do all the time. Because she wanted to do everything. She wanted to go to New York to the American Girl store. She wanted to go to swim with the dolphins in the Bahamas. She wanted to do everything. Turks and Caicos. I'm like, you are in 3rd grade. And I went for church. So let's do this. And her dad's going, no. So, any other questions? That's a great question.
Actually, more.
Okay.
You mentioned like body functions, like what age appropriate body looks. I also feel like there's pregnant people anywhere everywhere like right now, so like I'm looking for painless because he started to be like, well, I know the baby's growing long, you have to sit there.
Yeah, so, I think most schools these days talk about that a bit, talk about like adult walk opportunities. So at this age, it's just like I said, talking about
just specific.
I didn't realize it was 10:45, so I'm gonna let y'all go. But thank y'all for coming. Thank you so much, y'all. Appreciate it. I will email y'all the PowerPoint since y'all didn't get to see it. I feel bad. Thank you.